Over the past few months, I have been dealing with different areas affecting our everyday life in the form of videos. But lately there has been an increased demand from viewers who have sent me a large number of questions which require specific answers. So I have decided that in the next few videos I will be taking up some of these questions and answering them as comprehensively as I can. We have a long list of questions, but because of the time factor, I shall just be answering 4 and will take up the rest hopefully next time. I'm Dr. Saad Malik. I'm Professor of Psychiatry at Shalimar Medical and Dental College. So let's go for the first question. The question is, how does one get over childhood traumas? This is a problem that, as a psychiatrist, I see very often. Most people think that to see a psychiatrist, particularly in Pakistan, you've got to be mad. But truly speaking, most people who consult me and others are because of people who had very traumatic or troubled childhoods. You see, when we are born, the first 5 to 7 years are extremely critical. The mind of a child in this age range is like a sponge. It absorbs everything the child sees or hears, regardless of how accurate or truthful that is. So if they hear critical comments from their parents, if they hear negative remarks from their parents and other family members, if they view fights, violence, this all becomes part of their subconscious mind. And when these children grow up, they grow up with personalities that have a lot of issues. They grow up with what we call psychological scars. And psychological scars can tarnish your psychological life forever. The problem with psychological scars is that unlike physical scars, you don't see them. Even the person who has them does not see them. And because you don't see them, you never get treated for them. And secondly, if you have physical scars, you alone suffer. But if you have psychological scars, and when you grow up, you suffer, and so does your spouse, your children, your subordinates, your family members, your neighbors. Everybody suffers simply because you had a troubled childhood. It's extremely important that when you become parents, you should understand that the first few years of life are extremely important. Your children not only need food, education, they also need love, they also need psychological care, they also need emotional care, which sadly in our society is terribly lacking. Now, the good news is that even if you have had a bad childhood, you've had a traumatic childhood, it's not a writing in stone and you can still get help. So once you grow up and you realize that you have these childhood problems that have affected your personality and understandably your relationships, you can get psychological help in the form of psychotherapy, where with a qualified therapist, you can explore your childhood, you can revisit the trauma that you have experienced, and with the help of a therapist, you can do away with your maladaptive and with your unfit psychological reactions to life and develop new ways of coping with situations and relationships. So that is the good news, that with therapy, you can mend and you can cure your psychological scars. The second question is, Dr. Sahab, what do you do if your husband is an irresponsible man even after 15 years of marriage? Well, I think first we have to define what do you mean by responsible, because we all have different criteria by which we define a responsible person. Many times it happens that one spouse who is considering the other as irresponsible may himself or herself be over perfectionistic and over obsessional and over meticulous. And for that, the other spouse, who may not be all that meticulous and perfectionistic, seems to be irresponsible. So the first thing is, be accurate in making your assessment. Ask a couple of other people who know your spouse, your husband, do they think this person is irresponsible? Or do they say, no, the problem is with you, you are over-conscientious? But assuming that the person is irresponsible, there are a number of things that can be done. The first thing is, sit with your spouse and say, we have a problem. I emphasize the word we. Don't say you have a problem, because the moment you say you, the other person becomes defensive. So say, we have a problem, and say, I get upset when this happens. You must specify the behavior that is upsetting you. Don't label the person as irresponsible. Don't give labels. And do not blame the person. Whenever you do that, the other person becomes defensive and does not want to correct himself or herself. So just say, we have a problem, I get upset. Again, say, I get upset when you do this. And this means specify the precise actions that your husband undertakes that you think are because of his lack of responsibility. And then help him, and you can devise strategies to do that, to work on those specific behaviors so that the person becomes more and more responsible when you work together. You also have to understand that no marriage is perfect, no relationship is perfect, no spouse is perfect. You should, if all is said and done and you have tried everything, and your husband still is irresponsible from your point of view, then try to focus on other aspects of his personality and behavior. He may be doing very well in many other areas. And just like in monsoons, if you have 10 mosquitoes disturbing you and not letting you go to sleep, and if you kill 9 of them, there still remains 1 and you worry about that. In the same way, in a spouse, you may have 9 excellent attributes, but you just worry about that 1 which is bugging you. So try to accept the whole package of your spouse. Focus on the things that are good, because before you expect your spouse to be perfect, try to be perfect yourself, and you can never be perfect. No one can be. So try to accept your husband as a whole, with his weaknesses and the plus points. And if you still feel that there are issues that are more than that, then again, perhaps seeing a therapist, a marriage counselor will help, because you can understand your husband's perspective and he or she can guide you how to overcome this issue. But the bottom line is, make sure he actually is irresponsible and not simply because of your criterion. And secondly, take the problem together as a couple and don't blame him, and be specific on the behaviors that need to be changed. I hope this can help you. Our third question is, Dr. Saad, I'm 62 years old and I'm always overoccupied with things to do and multiple thoughts going in my mind simultaneously. This is a very common problem, and we call this the restless mind syndrome. And this is a state in which you're all the time thinking, calculating, figuring, analyzing, and never being in the present moment. So if you suffer from this restless mind syndrome, the best remedy for that is to learn to live in the present moment. And this means that whatever you are doing, whether it's eating, whether it's bathing, whether it's playing with a child, you should totally immerse yourself in that situation. Let me give you an example. The thoughts that bother us, we think thoughts are coming to our mind, but actually we are creating thoughts ourselves. Most of us are slaves to our thoughts. They control us. But those who have developed their minds, they are able to reach a point where they become the masters of their mind and they control their thoughts. Your mind can be a jungle of random thoughts, or it can be an emotional garden of thoughts that you look after. You decide which thoughts are going to be implanted, which thoughts will be weeded out, which thoughts will be developed, and which thoughts will not enter your mind. The best way to do that is through the art of meditation. Now, meditation has been practiced for thousands of years in Eastern cultures, but now through scientific studies we know that it has a very powerful effect in controlling your thoughts, and because of your thought control, controlling your feelings and emotions. You can read a book on meditation, but basically there are 4 ingredients of meditation. Number 1, you need to look for a quiet environment where there's no disturbance for at least 20 minutes. You can either lie down or you can sit in a comfortable chair. And then you can focus on your breath going in and your breath going out. And the huge flood of thoughts that will invade you, just let it happen. Don't resist your thoughts. Don't stick to them. Don't focus on them. Just let them come and let them go. Just let them come and let them go. And then you will see that at the end of about 15 minutes, your mind will gradually become devoid of any thoughts in this consciousness. Try 20 minutes a day, and after 3 weeks or so, you will notice that this has become easier for you to do, and a point will come when within a few seconds you will be able to reach a state of mind which now may take 20 minutes in the beginning. In addition to that, what you can do is that you can select a few minutes every day, let's say 20 minutes in the morning and 20 in the evening, and in this time slot, try to do things in which you are totally immersed in that activity. Do it for 20 minutes first, twice a day, and then gradually increase it so that ultimately throughout the day you are living in the present moment. Once you train your brain to do that, you will enjoy your food more often, you will enjoy relating to people more often, you will enjoy being with yourself more often. So, present moment living is the answer to someone who has this restless mind syndrome. Our last question is how to realize when to have sabr and when to take a stand. I think it's a very interesting question, and in our culture particularly, people get muddled up about it. Please remember 3 things. Number 1, in life, in any relationship, we have needs and we have desires. Needs are those essential expectations that must be fulfilled for the relationship to continue and to be mutually satisfying. Desires are those wishes that, if fulfilled, it contributes to the relationship, but if by any chance they cannot, it is still okay. So, if your needs are not being met, and if your needs are not being gratified, then you should take a stand, otherwise over time the relationship will wither away. On the other hand, if your desires are not being met, then if the other aspects of the relationship are okay, then maybe accepting it and putting up with it, or in your case, practicing sabr may be the right option. The second thing is that in life, In any relationship, there are crucial issues and non-crucial issues. It is very unwise where you take a stand on all issues because you want to win the battle every time. So it's an act of maturity, it's an act of wisdom that you should give in on issues that do not matter in the long run, but take a stand on those issues where it's extremely important for your values or what you live for. This distinction is usually muddled up in our relationships, and we start fighting on issues that are trivial and are desire-based, and we overlook those that really reflect our needs, with the result that the relationship gets destroyed. There are three behaviors that we practice in life. One is passive behavior, in which we only care for the rights of others and not our own rights, so people just walk over us. Then there is aggressive behavior, where we only think of our own rights but not the rights of others. And this you particularly see in our culture, where people are aggressive on the roads, in hospitals, in courts. We think we can get away by being aggressive. The third option is the one that we should all practice, and that is we should care for the rights of other people and also our own rights. And this is called assertive behavior. And this is what we need to learn and practice. There's a very famous prayer which some of you may know, that God grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon with more questions and more answers. Thank you.